Most walk past Malta's crumbling facades and see a hazard. Our guest today sees a puzzle. He is a restoration architect and heritage researcher who bridges the gap between dusty National Archives and the muddy reality of a construction site. From uncovering hidden history behind false walls to leading the recovery of landmarks like Villa Frere, he ensures Malta's stories are preserved rather than replaced. Edward Side, welcome to Temple Talks. Hi Edward, welcome to Temple Talks.
Hi Matt, thank you.
Really pleased to have you here. We're going to get straight into it, as always. To be honest, if you see a danger sign on a collapsing building, do you turn away, walk away, or does it inspire you to go and explore?
Definitely inspire me to go and explore and have a closer look.
Tell us a bit about that. Where did this passion for buildings, history, archaeology begin?
I guess it's because I am originally from Slima, and I grew up in Slima in the 1980s and 90s.
Okay.
At the time, Slima was going through this whole development phase from the beautiful old houses that we miss so much today to the construction of apartment blocks.
Okay.
And I grew up with this happening. Buildings immediately next door to my parents' place coming down and waking up to the noise of jiggers and dust and all the other cacophony that comes with such destruction. And I just kept this. I just had this growing feeling of this isn't right. You know, so this is wrong. This
Okay.
doesn't. This is yours. And this stayed with me, and subconsciously, it drove me to the world of architecture.
Okay.
I have no architects in my family.
None at all?
That I know of.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
None since as well, and for now.
Okay, sure.
And so it's it literally, I think it came from this. And another two aspects that contributed to this was the fact that my father loves antiques. We've been immersed in the world of old furniture, old houses, lovely old things as well.
Okay.
That, and also me going to St. Edward's College from Prep 1 all the way to sixth form.
Okay.
St. Edward's is a wonderful Victorian building,
Yeah.
set in the Knights period fortifications of Cotonera. And I remember driving from Slima to Cotonera every day. Was just fascinating for me. We used to always want to sit near the window, and right until sixth form, it was like a pilgrimage, without exaggerating. Then getting to St. Edward's, which itself is still a wonderful building.
Yeah.
Last I went there, it was great to see that they've pretty much preserved the building as it is. The bastions are still there. We used to play on our playing fields where the actual basis of the fortifications. We would even, go for walks or run away occasionally to nearby Zabbar and the other areas there in Birgu. And it still is a part of Malta, in fact, which I just love.
Sure. So you were just immersed in this sort of like ancient civilization. As a child, would that like inspire kind of what playtime rituals look like, and would you become a Knight of Malta, or I don't know, or an air raid warden from World War II? These sort of things, they would inspire you and be around you, I guess.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, so you talked about old, beautiful things. Okay, if I like old and beautiful things as well, but I have a feeling that my love and fascination of older things is not as old as the things that you like. So I like postmodern sort of design, architecture, art, music, these things, mid-century. I think you're talking about a time that way predates that. Can you tell us a bit about?
Oh, I like those two.
You like those too?
Oh,
so
yes,
you just okay.
yes. In fact, the notion of heritage, cultural heritage, old buildings, buildings of cultural significance, archaeology, perhaps are more associated with a date, a cut-off date.
Okay.
And to some extent, maybe that's true. However, in truth, we're always creating heritage in a way. And I mean, this is a subject which is just so interesting. And I think it's so topical now, is where do you say that is heritage and this is, modern and,
Sure.
And it's I think it aligns with this idea of definition of values in a society.
Sure.
For instance, something which I appreciate a lot. I don't know much about. I'm definitely not a student about the subject. However, Maltese feasts, for instance,
Okay.
they're an aspect of our cultural heritage, which is now recognized internationally,
Yeah.
which is evolving, and which is, from my perspective at least, in some aspects, is actually growing.
Okay.
So it's alive and it's modern day heritage. And the same is I feel with architecture.
Okay.
Yesterday evening I was at Dar el-Hanin Samaritan, which is a wonderful place designed by Professor Richard England, an architect who's
Yes.
very much around us. He was there as well.
Okay, brilliant.
He's one of my heroes, I would say.
Yeah. I think he's a Maltese idol and hero.
Yeah,
for sure.
he's a legend, and I really suggest you bring him here one day. And
Yeah, he's
interview
quite a
him.
poetic guy
He's
as well.
beyond. You need
his
more
work
than an
and
hour, and he's there. He's so humble, but yet he is an architect who I think is the only architect who is alive and has a building of his that is a Grade 1 monument, which is the wonderful Manikata Church.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
But the Manikata Church was designed and built in the 60s. 50 years have passed, and it was designated a monument.
Yeah.
But there are other buildings, other creations which need to be protected now.
Sure.
And what's wrong with going beyond 50 years? If you have experts from various aspects of the arts, of architecture, of sociology, saying, look, this space, we feel that this space needs to be preserved for posterity, especially in this situation where the architect is still around. It's wonderful. And so that is an aspect that interests me a lot. There was a time where I used to say, oh, this is from that period, this is more important than the other. Okay. But I really feel it's not the case, especially when it comes to buildings, monuments, pieces of architecture that come from that are of a different style, that are of a style which is almost unique in Malta. And there are styles. You mentioned postmodernism. Mm-hmm. There's a beautiful house on the Birkirkara bypass.
Okay.
It's unfinished. In true character, it is a house designed by an architect for himself. Apparently, because I tried to do research about this and I just read this, it turns out that by the time he had almost finished it, the Birkirkara bypass became very busy, and his wife refused to go and live there. So it's an unfinished building, and it's designed in what I've defined as Maltese postmodernism.
Yes.
There are very few examples, to my knowledge. So in my view, that building is as important as the Norman house in Mdina, or as a Baroque palazzo in Valletta. Mm-hmm. Incidentally, to go a step further, we have a multitude of Baroque palazzi, or of Maltese neoclassical houses.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting that so we can easily sacrifice one of them because we have a multitude.
Of course.
Not at all. But then we have very few examples of Maltese postmodernism.
Yeah.
I can only think of 3 or 4
Okay.
examples. So it's stretching heritage to all extremes, which I find fascinating. But as I say, it's tied in with other aspects, with values, with the zeitgeist, as in what
Yes.
in our times are we prioritizing.
Sure.
you know?
Sure.
Anyway, it's a
No,
huge subject.
fascinating. I mean, I think the starting point for me was where you talked about culture as a concept is in constant change. That will never change. That's always shifting and shaping things. So your reflection on like the Maltese Festa, for example, it may not be the same as we knew it from a nostalgic point of view, but the way it's changing, would you see that as something that is as a positive or as a negative, something that should be embraced? And I want to sort of tie this back into development, property development, and how that is shaping out, because there's a mix of different demands on housing pressures, for example, or compliance issues, and how do we protect, preserve, enhance, or even create identity around new buildings? And I think that's probably again with this concept of culture being in constant sort of change, transition, growth, demise, this debate is how is that reflected in the architectural landscape on the island?
Well, I think that there is a loss. There's been a rift between the idea of architecture and town planning or urban design.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
they can't be two independent missions.
Sure.
And so there needs to be some form of reconnection of the two. Yes, the pressures are there, but there is also a huge, in my view, lack of zooming out and saying, okay, so we have these pressures, clearly with increased connectivity with all of its issues as well, traffic and road networks and the such. There is less of a concern that you need more buildings in this area rather than this area,
Okay.
like it or not.
Yes. Yeah.
So that in itself provides the opportunity to say, look, there are certain parts of Malta which need to be preserved for what they are, with perhaps slight alterations to bring into modern times.
Sure.
Other areas of Malta can take so much more. Now, I'm not an urban planner. I did urban design at university.
Sure.
It's a very interesting subject at university. In my time, after the third year, so you do 3 years of all aspects of architecture and structural engineering and design, and then you decide to choose if you're going into structural engineering, architecture, or urban design. And I decided I wanted to go for urban design because this world of appreciating architecture outside of just buildings fascinated me. And I felt I also wanted to go in that direction, and I needed a bit of a change from just architecture and heritage. And it was so second nature in Malta at the time, historically, to provide places for people to live that were in comfortable streets with decent infrastructure,
Yes.
close to parks, close to nature.
Yes.
Obviously, historically, the population was less.
Yes.
And a lot of the issues we see today happened in the past, but on a much smaller scale. There was a time when Valletta suffered from overpopulation.
Yeah.
Valletta, I believe, nowadays has a resident population of 6,000 minus
Yeah.
resident.
That's incredible.
There was a time when it had a resident population of 24,000.
Yeah. Wow.
So you had slums, you had issues of sanitation. In fact, the sanitary laws that we still abide by today came as a consequence. They were created in the mid-19th century of these issues.
Yeah.
However, now the problem has inflated.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom line, I mean, this is a discussion. We can easily say I would have kept Sliema with its fine Victorian and Edwardian townhouses on Tower Road, whilst at the same time that they were being pulled down in the 80s, they had started to build Pembroke.
Yes.
With
yes.
waterfront houses further back. But let's face it, at the end of the day, for something to happen to improve all of this, there needs to be political will.
Yes.
Without political will, everybody is going to be doing what they are doing, and decisions are going to be taken depending on whose kingdom these decisions are affecting.
Sure.
People go abroad, people see what happens in other countries. It's true, yes, the pressures, I say again, are there. We are tight, but starting from even little things can make a difference. One decision which was taken recently, I believe it is being enforced, to improve slightly the situation of overdevelopment happening in Gozo, is that all facades have to be built in limestone.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, it's a good step, but it is, first of all, why just Gozo and not Malta? Especially in certain areas of Malta.
Sure.
I wouldn't say that this would have to happen in Parcheville or in parts of Bujibba, St. Paul's Bay, but there needs to be a consistent vision for even other parts of Malta. But again, that's a bit, in some cases, too little too late.
Yeah, that's the challenge. It's like, how do you reverse a scenario?
I think it's quite obvious. Certain urban fabrics are now beyond reversing.
Yes.
So if you had originally you see when a hotel is built and it's a bit of a blot on the landscape, I say to myself, a hotel, presumably it's one owner, it has a lifespan. Eventually, that will be knocked down and hopefully replaced with something better. When apartment blocks are built and you have multiple owners, the chances are that will never change.
No.
So once a bad decision is taken on a certain area, and it is being felt nowadays with you can see people that are standing up to decisions taken to build a block of apartments, for instance, for 4 levels and a penthouse in a predominantly two-story row of houses. See, once that happens, then you've compromised. And it's understandable that neighbors will say, but now why can't I do that, and so it's a bit of a problem.
Okay.
Definitely, yesterday before today, pristinely preserved areas of Malta, including, there are, for instance, a number of areas in the south of Malta, which have housing areas, rows of townhouses built in the 80s and 90s with wonderful Maltese 1980s, 1990s architecture. Perhaps at the time, some people would have criticized them as being kitsch, in Gozo as well.
Sure.
Time has passed. There's an appreciation for them. People are obviously looking at them and saying, my God, we thought that was bad. Look at what's happening now. Grey blocks of apartments going around there. I mean, this color grey, which is very much in vogue, grey white aluminium with satin glass. If you're lucky, maybe you'll get cappuccino colored rendering.
Sure.
It is depressing. And there are studies And there's of course a lot of credit and merit, in the fact that this is affecting us mentally.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, what you're describing is kind of globalization as well. I mean, I get a sense when I travel, it's almost I'm arriving in the same place that I've just left, because things are beginning to look so much alike. You know, like you talked about grey colors and things like this. I mean, there's not much differentiation between new buildings in that I can see in across Europe. It all looks and feels very much the same. So there's questions there about identity, what have you. I wanted to ask you, from as an architect, do you place aesthetics above or equally with sort of function? I think it's a challenge, because I get a sense that you're very aesthetic led about what you're seeing, but you have to kind of compromise sometimes on those things because of functionality of a building.
Well, yes, but I would put them aligned with each other.
Okay, they're on an equal footing.
Certainly, on those facets of a project which are going to have an impact on the surroundings.
Yeah.
It's quite basic, really. Internally, it's up to whoever the owner is.
Sure.
To, as long as it's in line with sanitary law and with health and safety. Sure. and so on. But externally, there is this idea of a facade of a building belongs to the owner. I disagree. Okay. If you're imposing, if you are on the line with the public, with public space.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and that even includes if you're set back.
Yes.
So if your project is visible from anywhere, then there has to be some form of control on what is being designed.
Yeah, I love that.
As a general rule.
Yes.
Then, depending in which context you are in, so the closer perhaps you are to Pacheville, there are different considerations to be given than if you are close to Gigantia Temple in Gozo.
Yes.
And one can say, but it's all subjective. I had this discussion with somebody who says that, listen, you live in a bit of a bubble, in a bit of an echo chamber, where you think that Malta should, modern architecture should be in traditional design. And I am not of that thinking.
No.
Certainly, there are contexts where I feel that traditional design is more appropriate than going for something contemporary.
Sure.
Again, there is an element, it's true, of subjectivity. There's not just one solution, which is acceptable. That's what makes our work exciting as well.
Of course.
But the fact that we should go to some form of nostalgia in architecture, I feel is wrong. I have seen, and you can see them everywhere, really poor examples of literally, possibly just to tick a planning box or a planning commitment. You've got a modern block and they sort of keep the facade at ground floor or they reconstruct it in a pastiche way.
Sure.
Unfortunately, this is also linked to the fact that this is another grave concern, that certain trades are being lost.
Okay.
Trade schools don't really exist anymore.
Like, for example, stonemasonry or...
Stonemasonry, carpentry, joinery.
Yes,
blacksmithery and the like. So you get a pastiche result, which seems to be acceptable.
Yes.
Because people who are qualified in aesthetics, who are genuinely trained and genuinely opinionated in saying, no, this is not how, this is disproportionate.
Yes.
So even that, we've seemed to have lost a sense of proportion, even in the reconstruction or the construction of what we like to say is older architecture.
Okay, explain that a bit more.
For instance, one very common aspect is the design of balconies. Okay. So you get balconies which are the thickness of a concrete slab, because obviously the concrete slab of between floors projects.
Sure.
And then it's clad in stonework with railings which are set inside, or a Maltese balcony that is inside, and underneath you've got nothing to support because it's concrete, or you have fake corbels, we call them.
Okay.
And this is why certain buildings, even I have to say, of the 1990s and 80s, were even verging on the pastiche, because they just don't look good because they're not proportionate. There's a lack of proportion.
Okay.
And proportion is not something which, in older times, it came as a second nature.
Mm-hmm.
You see, in older times, you had the master mason and the architect often were even the same person. He would be somebody who would have a knack for proportion because he would be born immersed in it.
Sure.
Possibly learning from his ancestors, or else in the studio of another master. And it would just come naturally. I see this happening, for instance, you can see it with I sometimes work with Italian restorers.
Okay.
And it's amazing. It just comes naturally for them. And you see it even in certain works in Italy. I've seen quite a few boo-boos in Italy as well, in Sicily, where I have some experience.
Sure.
And this is being lost. And sometimes it's not about defining it in mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it looks good. I remember at school we had the French curves, which you would use to come up with certain curves for certain aspects of design, because they look good. Yes. But this was educated in a way that something which unfortunately it was quite lacking with our education at university. You go on site and you learn, and someone points these things around.
Yes.
And says, this looks good, because this doesn't look good. Why doesn't it look good? Because often they would even be linked to mathematical sequences of formula, like the golden section, like the Fibonacci series. These weren't just done there, discovered willy-nilly for the fun of it, but they were applied.
Exactly. What about land reclamation? What are your thoughts on that? I'm like, do it. Let's go bigger.
I guess I'm neutral to it, for want of having, environmentalists, marine biologists coming down on us like a ton of bricks, which clearly the moment it's mooted, they are saying, are you serious? Because when you think about it, and this makes sense, there's so much degradation going on land.
Yes.
That now it's going to be the sea.
Of course.
Where for the most part the sea is apart from overfishing perhaps and pollution because even the sewage technically has been sorted.
Yeah.
It's going to be now development into the sea. So there's a bit of a minefield when you.
But you look like, if you look across the world, there's so many examples of where this is, not just like reclamation into the sea. For example, take the swamps and marshlands of Florida, for example, and look at Florida today and how developed that is with the space. But it was a space, 120 years ago, which was like this, nothing can exist here, nothing will work. Or Dubai, for example, or, I don't see any other option. Gotta go big.
I honestly, I would rather that happened in Malta after the war, incidentally, on a very much smaller scale. Msida, Pieta, Slima, they even tried that, but then the Gregale washed it away. They basically dumped loads of debris from the Blitzkrieg to reclaim land.
Sure.
Which back then made sense. Today, shortening a bay would obviously be a bit of a no-no.
Yeah.
I really think that now political will and people with their own kingdoms aside, we always hear the same people being said that these people run the country, they are the main developers. With a bit of I guess, gentlemanliness.
Yes.
They can sit down and say, look, we have this situation. We have Pacheville, which is a dump.
Yeah.
I believe there was this discussion once, a pre-election promise sent everybody crazy when there was this idea of knocking down buildings in Pacheville, creating new avenues, and everybody started saying, "But that land is mine. That land is mine." Nothing came of it.
Yeah. Sure.
But if this is why a big hotel, is an opportunity to create something on a large scale, but can be done beautifully.
Yes.
Because it's a large scale development.
Yeah.
However, when there are these small buildings going up next to each other, these are people, individuals with their own kingdom
And their own vision.
You know?
Yeah. So, Edward, thanks so far. It's now time for...
a cigar. Oh.
No, unfortunately not. This is our Temple Talks question box. Okay, you get to choose a few questions, read them out loud, and give us your answers. Hopefully there's not too many nasty surprises in there for you.
Oof. A lot of questions.
There is a lot of questions. Big choice. Great questions.
Pick one at random.
Okay. Do you want me to hold on to that for you?
Thank you. If you had to describe your personality as a building style, what are you?
Okay.
I have to say that it depends on where I am at the time.
Okay.
On where I am at the time.
Physically or mentally?
Mentally.
Okay.
But probably at the drop of a hat, I would say Edwardian. So
Fine choice.
beginning of the 20th century.
Okay.
'Cause that's the style which I grew up with, for the most part in Sliema.
Sure.
And it's a time, even maybe more than the building, the times as well. The 1920s for me, just
in all aspects, you like
an age which I'd love to. If I had a time machine, that would be the first stop.
Okay.
That would be the first stop. I mean, it had there were its problems, but it was a great period in Malta.
Yes. And you think specifically about Malta in that period, 1920s.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. That's brilliant. Thank you. Right. Next question. Give it a bit of a shake for you. That can just go down. I know you might get the same question if you do that. No cheating.
Okay.
All right. Here we go.
It was a long one. Oh, most embarrassing thing your parents caught you doing.
What's that? The most embarrassing thing your parents
ever caught you doing.
Okay.
I'm not censoring here, don't worry.
It's fine. I'm just thinking. Do you know what? I'm thinking for myself. I don't know if I could have a...
Can I ask these back to you?
You can afterwards, no problem.
Probably it would be them seeing videos of myself singing in a restaurant with friends, inebriated, of course, abroad.
Okay, very
that's
good.
what comes to mind. I'm sure there are others, but that's what
There's
comes
something
to
else.
mind.
I was worried where you're going with the video thing, but that's great. Okay, there we go. Next question.
If you were invisible for a day, where would you go?
Awesome question.
I would go to Castile.
Okay.
Hopefully on the day, I'd like to choose the day.
Yeah, sure.
The day
Okay,
when certain decisions are being taken with regards to where Malta's going in the way of
All right.
of planning, urban planning, and listen to what's happening.
Okay.
You know, so to speak, behind the scenes.
Get some insight.
Actually, what is making certain decisions being taken?
Okay. Would you whisper anything in anyone's ear? Particularly. Don't do it. Do it.
I would, but I guess that would end the meeting because I just spoke the living daylights out of them. But
Super.
yes, I would definitely.
Thanks, Edward. Okay.
Presumably the Prime Minister's ear.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go.
Okay, so this is the same one.
That's it, yeah.
Okay. What is a normal everyday household task that you are surprisingly terrible at? I'd say leaving the house as I would have found it.
Okay.
Because I would think of having to do certain things, but I'd been so much of a rush.
Okay.
And obviously then it's there when I get back home. So
it doesn't go away.
So yeah, probably cleaning up certain things or tidying up.
Yeah. Right, last question. Miniature.
Oh, most awkward encounter you've had in a dark cellar?
Oh gosh, who comes up with these questions? My mind goes in one direction, I think yours went in another. Thankfully.
Well, to keep it in what I think is your other direction, it would probably be quite a mundane thing, but it would be a rather unshy rat.
Okay.
And this would have been when I was exploring under some spaces in Valletta.
Okay.
And
as a kid or as a grown-up architect, as a student. Okay.
I was basically back then there was no mobile with lights, so I had this sort of thing they put on your head.
Yeah.
Battery was a bit dim, and I'm hearing just drops and pitter patter. I was alone, and occasionally I would do this to myself. It's a lovely experience. I just switched the lights off. I'd be on my own. Crazy thing, really. I'd be alone down there. But anyway, what the hell? Switch the lights off and experience total darkness.
Right.
With a bit of audio.
Yes.
Drops in the background, and the drops became like pitter patter things running around.
Yeah.
I switched the lights on, and there's these two eyes looking at me, and it's a rat that was just seated.
Yeah.
Seated and saying almost, what are you going to do about it now? You're going to come closer. You're trespassing.
Exactly. No fear.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's quite a few stories about those times, actually.
Excellent. Well, this is a great kind of bypass to where we want to go, and we'll talk about secret gardens, tunnels, hidden rooms. I'd love to hear some stories about those findings over the years, things that perhaps stick out to you. Tell us about uncovering some secret rooms or dark tunnels.
One of when I graduated as an architect, to graduate we have to do a thesis and a dissertation.
Sure.
The thesis would be a study about a certain aspect in architecture or urban design. It's just the stream I had chosen, and then the thesis. So that's a dissertation. The thesis would be an actual design project. My dissertation to become an architect, so this was in 2005, was about subterranean Valletta.
Okay.
And cool. I had done some preliminary research to realize that nobody had actually tackled the subject. It's been a source of great urban myths, and there were a few anecdotes which were mentioned in some publications I was familiar with. Anyway, and I got the go-ahead from my selected tutor at the time, and I decided to in the little time that I had, which was basically close to 6 months really, to provide a preliminary story of how subterranean Valletta developed. So from these anecdotes that I mentioned, from some appraisals of plans and documents at the main sources, the archival sources, and then literally physically going on site and exploring. And so with going there, obviously with an architectural approach rather than recording all of the urban myth, even though you can't avoid it, I don't want to avoid it, and it's very colourful.
Yes.
because everybody has a story to tell. If you even go there today, you hear different versions of the same tunnel that leads from one side to the other of the city or even beyond. And obviously
how connected is it? I mean, we actually received a question in advance of today from one of our followers asking, is it true that every village is connected to Valletta underground in some way? Is that a myth? Is it true?
I would suspect that's a myth. I would definitely won't categorically say it's not the case.
Okay.
Very unlikely that historically they were connected. What's happening now, I wouldn't know, because nowadays tunnels are bored easily. And there's a whole system which is fascinating. I'd love to visit sometime, of tunnels which are acting as flood relief systems.
Okay.
These are modern.
Yeah.
But historically, not to my knowledge, there are various categories of underground spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Valletta is a microcosm of a good number of these. So you have, in the beginning, Valletta was, as we know, one of the earliest, you can say, Renaissance planned cities in Europe.
Yes.
The Knights of St. John had this carte blanche, Mount Chiberas, after the Great Siege, which itself provided also benefited from the terrain of Valletta to even create underground or semi-underground spaces to serve both the Ottomans and the Knights.
Yeah.
Then the Knights, when they decided to go ahead and build the city, because they had, before they even accepted Malta, we have made this notion that Jean de Valette came up with the idea to build a city on Valletta. Mm-hmm. It was actually previously desired by the Knights, and one of the reasons they accepted Valletta was that there's this isthmus of land.
Yes, yeah.
With two great ports on either side. There is obviously St. Angelo and Birgu, and they initially established Senglea, which to some extent was a prototype of Valletta. It still is. You can see that today. But they didn't have at the time perhaps the resources, the drive to get Valletta started. They built St. Elmo. Anyway, and after the Great Siege, they said, we need to get the city started. They had a huge support from Europe, blah, blah, and Valletta was created. But the Knights themselves being hospitallers, so one of their raison d'etre was that they were people who championed sanitation.
Yes.
And in fact, one of their main buildings was the wonderful Sacra Infermeria, today the Mediterranean Conference Center. And so they created a number of laws, regulations with an office, the Officio delle Case, the planning authority of the day, to, amongst other things, each building had to be serviced by a reservoir beneath. The reservoir had to be of water, the well of water cistern, proper word is a cistern, had to be in proportion with the size of the building above. From the excavation of the reservoir, the stone there would be used to build the house on top. Again, this was a practice which is not only in Malta, of course, and had happened previously. It's the most logical thing to do.
Yes.
So you cut the stone on site, so you don't have to travel far from quarries, and by default you're creating a vessel for the storage of water.
Yes.
At the same time, you have to have a separate space for the connection to the public sewer. So a system of sewers were created. And the few times I've given talks about subterranean Valletta, I manage people's expectations. Those coming to hear, hoping to hear about secret tunnels leading to beyond Valletta, and so that someone can have his concubines. At least from my research, there's very little evidence of this. Okay. But what I find fascinating is the sewage system of Valletta.
Right, okay.
And
we're talking how long ago? How many hundreds of years ago?
Oh, 1560s. Yeah. 1560s.
It's incredible.
It is incredible. Considering that at that time, Paris and London were wallowing in open sewers in the streets, and it was a long time before they had proper sewage system. Yes. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And it is an aspect of subterranean Valletta which is still there. And it needs a hell of an upgrade, at least the last time I was there, because they're basically festering time bombs in the way of sewage, and
Wow.
they need a decent upgrade. A good number of them have actually telecommunication cables passing through them as well,
Okay.
armored, for want of very hungry rodents that need to sharpen their teeth.
Okay.
So in that way, it's fascinating, and they were designed in such a way. Back then, it was only gravity that could make them function.
Yes.
No pumps, of course. But they were separate to the water storage systems.
Okay.
Presumably, the water storage systems are always above the sewage. And once you're underground in Valletta, so when you're above ground, Valletta, in essence, has 5 valleys. You've got, those ups and downs, and the topographically, this is appreciated when you're at the top of Old Baker Street or Cedar Street.
Okay.
But it's a large piece of land, 1 square kilometer, which had its own topography. And initially, there was an attempt to perhaps flatten the top part of Valletta, but not much. And so all the buildings and all the streets had to respect this topography. So we're looking on top. Valletta has a strict grid plan, very much in line with the Renaissance way of doing things.
Sure.
The most efficient. Let's not forget that the Knights were in a hurry to build Valletta, of fear that they would be attacked by the Ottomans again. Within 5 years, the walls of Valletta were constructed, and this is quite something. This is, we talked about earlier how history repeats itself.
Yep.
For the construction of Valletta, the energy, the need was so huge, and the Knights and the Maltese were coming out of a siege that had seriously affected the population, the resources, the mood at the time.
Yes.
That the Knights had to appeal to Sicily and bring over a huge load of Sicilian masons and construction workers in order so that the city is built in record time. And to appreciate this, I recommend that people go to the ditch of Valletta. So the best way to get there, I guess, is from beneath the Baraka lift, but you can also get there from Marsamshet side and appreciate the towering bastions that
absolutely
one finds as one approaches beneath City Gate. The height of the highest part of Valletta is where Castile is, and that's approximately 55 meters above sea level.
Wow.
For most of that, there are bastion walls which were hewn out, and then part of them also built, of course. That took 5 years, and at the same time, they were creating these streets. There was a strict system of also buying property in Valletta, and how the houses had to be built, and these underground spaces.
Okay.
Which then along the years, right until the Second World War, they were enlarged, still used, and in the said war they were readapted for refuges against area bombing. And you mentioned towns and villages being interconnected. There is a dimension of subterranean Malta, which are air raid shelters. Which, thanks to a number of activists, there's recently on social media, a lot of them are exposed again, and a lot of roadworks happening, and they're revealed. I can safely say that no one is alike. So this isn't like the Anderson shelter in England where you had a prototype and they were all the same. These are rock cut.
Yes, that's right.
And these were cut by master masons who recognized the stratification of the rock. They recognized weak points, and so they had to adapt these spaces as the rock dictated. So each one is unique, and this is something I feel quite strongly about. Each one is, in my view, each one is worthy of preservation, because each one also symbolizes a not so long ago part of our history, whereby we came very close, Malta came very close to surrendering to Nazi and fascist
Yes. Absolutely.
the axis
Yes.
at the time. Very, very close. And so with the destruction of each one of these shelters, a little bit of that archaeology obviously goes, but also social history.
Yes.
That was a period where we suffered a lot.
Yeah. For sure.
And you mentioned earlier this quality of people making do.
Yes.
This comes from that. Huh?
For sure.
I'm sure. I mean, I see it in my parents and I see it in my grandparents.
Definitely.
My grandparents would be mortified to see
sort of throwaway culture.
what we throw out today.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But what's significant, we're 80 years on from the end of the war. And I guess generation by generation, those first-hand stories from people that experience that inevitably will be lost. So in preserving the spaces, I guess that's where the storytelling can continue as well,
Yes.
in a way.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I remember in Slema, we had started working on preserving a number of these shelters. Fortunately, there's a lot of documentation because it's fascinating how a lot of these shelters were created in 1942.
Yes.
Which was
as late as
the
that,
worst part of the war.
That's right.
When basically the Luftwaffe joined the war and bombs started intensifying, the bombings intensified, and yet in such a critical situation where one would assume there'd be chaos, this system of creating air raid shelters was headed by a committee. Meetings were minuted. There were architects, there were master masons, there were administrative stuff. Everything is fortunately preserved at the National Archives in Rabat, where the professionals there are doing a wonderful job of preserving these documents and making them available to the public.
Yes.
One can freely, on appointment, go and consult these documents, and you see all of these plans there, and then you go on site and you find them that a lot of them are still there.
Yeah.
Fortunately, a lot of this heritage in village cores and in places like Valletta and the Three Cities are still there. It's where they happen to be on the outskirts or underneath major road projects.
Yes, yeah.
But I think from what I see, the authorities are doing a very good job also of, where possible, trying to preserve them. I guess it's impossible to save everything, but I think they're doing a very good job. There is a lot more to be done, though, especially with underground Valletta.
Yeah. Okay. It sounds absolutely fascinating. Really. So, Edward, we received a couple of questions from some of our readers. One, I'm really looking forward to hear your answer on this. It's from a student architect, and they were asking about how they would go about convincing a client about preserving the original facade on a period building, and balancing that with the kind of the costs that are involved in doing that to achieve what they need to.
Right. Well, it definitely would be great if some form of history can be found about the building, even if it isn't directly related to the site. Okay. So if it is of a certain style, I think every effort should be made to do a bit of research, to find out more about that style, find old documents, print. I find that when you just show someone quickly on a phone or send a link, the effect isn't always there.
So
actually,
tactile.
Yes, make it a bit of an onerous experience. So can we meet in front of the facade, please? Humor me on this, and you explain in that way. Okay. It's very important to get into the details. I find there is unfortunately a problem where the stonework is to some extent preserved, and then details like the apertures, the metalwork are done away with. And sometimes you you realize is that the apertures are like the eyes of a face. So the facade, the face, has its eyes. It's the windows and the balconies, and I would slowly explain the importance of preserving all these elements, right down to the joinery, and sometimes even the color. But the color is sort of reversible, you know. And this can be done by doing this exercise.
So essentially, it's sharing and telling the story in a really meaningful way to the client.
Yes.
So
also, it's good to show the client other examples which have been done successfully.
Yeah.
Very often, when you see a facade in a bit of a state, sometimes, you know,
it's hard to visualize.
It's hard to visualize. It's a bit like I don't know, selling a dirty car. You know, even if you just wash the car, it makes a hell of a difference. A lick of paint makes a hell of a difference.
Good advice, thank you. And another question we had, I guess asking for a bit of a personal opinion, is what would you think is the most underrated spot or location in Malta that tourists don't get to see?
Oh, Villa Frey.
Okay, brilliant. Talk to us about Villa Frey.
Well,
this is a passion project, very close to your heart.
I would be, I think, very dishonest if I don't say it, Villa Frey. I mean, there are lots of other places. Having said that, as much as we love having visitors, it's not a place for mass visitors, Villa Frey.
Okay. Talk us through it. Describe it to us for people that haven't seen
Villa
Frey.
Villa Frey is a unique garden or estate, actually, in Pietà. It was created by an Englishman, John Hookham Frey, who retired relatively early in life to Malta, primarily because his wife was unwell and her doctors had prescribed healthier climates, as one did in those days, and they decided to come to one of the colonies. And what was meant to be a temporary stay eventually led to them establishing one of the most, I would say, sought after destinations in Malta. Frey, amongst other things, was a diplomat. He was a great man of letters. He brought with him arguably one of the best libraries in Malta.
Okay.
He was entrusted with even re-establishing certain institutions by the then relatively recently established British government.
What sort of institutions?
I think predominantly it would have been the University of Malta.
Yeah, wow.
He was one of those who was entrusted in upgrading it, in starting it up again.
Yes.
After the French interval. Another one was the library in Valletta. In fact, if one wants to get a glimpse of what he looked like, just go to the National Library in Valletta. Always a wonderful experience. You can walk in, just present some form of ID, walk up one of the most beautiful neoclassical staircases in Malta. First you've got Don Carm Saila, our national poet, and then the bust of John Hookham Frey. And he also had this desire to create what was then fashionable as in the way of an English landscape garden in Malta. English landscape gardens, in a nutshell, was a form of design in which, rather than having strict geometric shapes deciding on how a garden should be experienced, it's more the landscape telling you how it should be. So it's respecting the contours, respecting any existing elements in the landscape. And this is quite unique in Malta. For the most part, Maltese gardens, when one thinks of Maltese gardens, so you think of, for instance, Palazzo Parizio or San Anton Gardens or Villa Bologna. For the most part, you've got walled gardens, axes, you walk down avenues, quite ordered. This is different. Here we have a large tract of land, that's almost 14,000 square meters originally, whereby he rented the land, didn't even buy the land, he rented it from
Okay.
the Order of St. Catherine in Valletta. And on certain whims, he would create a folly here, a pathway there, a belvedere, and this garden was almost evolved organically,
Yes.
but clearly according to some form of design. The jury is still out there as to who he might have had
Okay.
as an architect. There were certainly 3 architects whom he was friends with. They were all called George.
Okay.
And we're almost certain that one of them designed the Tempietos there.
And would they would have been Maltese architects or British?
2 of them were Maltese. One of them was basically the head of the Royal Engineers, George Whitmore. They were very good friends.
Okay.
They were also Freemasons together.
Right.
At a time when Freemasonry is completely different, or perhaps someone understands it nowadays.
Sure.
And we're one aspect of this journey that we're now involved in is we're still discovering. So we're very much
Okay.
students of this subject.
Yes.
Very, very long story short, Matt, because this is a very long story, which is evolving, as I said. The gardens were created from the 1830s onwards. Frere enjoyed them for 10 years before passing away, right down to the 1930s. So for 100 years,
Wow.
these gardens had reached their apogee. And they were immortalized in the Country Life magazine. So in 1929, to be precise, the first time a garden in Malta featured in what is still today the most respected periodical publication on I would say possibly gardens in the world.
Yeah, sure.
Featured Villa Frere.
Wow.
The daughter of the then governor, Celia Congreve, penned a wonderful article.
Okay.
And these photographs were taken of the gardens at the time. It's almost as if somebody knew that after this, the decline would take place. And unfortunately, as a consequence of the construction of St. Luke's Hospital, today itself deemed a historic building in Guardamangia, the gardens started to be destroyed,
Okay.
developed over. Second World War came and went, damage was done. Further, the exigencies at the time required that a primary school be built for Pietà, a school for children with disabilities. It was named Hookham Frere School, in fact.
Okay.
St. Luke's was enlarged further. And from the full size, only a third survives today.
I've been there.
And the house itself.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, that third is now in the hands of our voluntary organization.
Yes.
We established ourselves in 2012.
Which is Friends of Villa Frere.
Friends of Villa Frere.
Mm-hmm.
I did a master's in England the year before on the conservation of historic gardens and landscapes, and I chose Villa Frere as my thesis.
Okay.
And I felt that I wanted to do something with this, and with that, with some friends, we established our voluntary organization, and we've been at it ever since. Okay. In 2018, we went into collaboration with Heritage Malta. The site is now a Heritage Malta attraction, but unlike its other sites, this is a co-managed attraction.
Sure.
And it's the first time it's ever been done. It's a great collaboration. And recently, we've also, with Heritage Malta's, of course, input, the house itself is now being integrated into the garden
as well.
It's a huge restoration project in the offing, and we're very excited about what's going to happen next.
Sure.
But we open once a month, and we're very proud to say that we have a lot of recurring visitors. People love the idea that they come and see something new,
yes,
a new part of the garden that we've restored, or else they would have come in the autumn and they decide to come in spring.
Yes, yeah,
And we have our Facebook page, which is our main
Okay.
our main
So
platform.
Okay.
We encourage everybody to come and have a look. So,
How can I ask?
Yeah.
How did, at what stage and how did you get involved? Obviously, you mentioned you were studying, so you wanted to do this. And at that point, what was the condition of Villa Frey?
for the most part, it was completely desolate.
Just
As I was doing my
a derelict
research,
space,
Yeah.
gated off.
yeah. In fact, what had happened was years before, when I was still studying at university in Malta, we had this professor. He's since passed, and he's in fact one of our heroes, because one of our plans is to dedicate a space which we want to call Champions of Villa Frey.
Okay.
Throughout its history, particularly in those darker years, so post-war, there were individuals whom, if it weren't for simply a letter that they wrote to a minister, or a letter they wrote to the editor, or an article
Yes.
that they penned, possibly more of the gardens would have been lost.
Right.
And this professor is one of them, because he said, listen, now that you have your cars, back then we were just 18, take some time and go and look at these sites. And amongst them were these architectural curiosities in the grounds of St. Luke's.
Yes.
St. Luke's at the time, this is 2003, was still very much, in use.
Yeah.
And you going into this place of, illness and cure, and how it is with hospitals,
Yes.
bit of a surreal feeling. But suddenly you see these wonderful architectural follies, Tempietos, Belvederes, arcaded walls.
Yes.
And that stayed with me, that there is a place here which is unique in Malta, clearly created by somebody with these intentions that came from some very interesting place, background. And I decided to adopt this place when I was doing then my master's thesis in 2011. And then, like I say, we to be together with some other nutters, because you got to be a bit crazy, we decided to do something about it. So we wrote to the government. We said, look, this place is abandoned. This is very important for so many reasons. Possibly the most important reason why this place is important is because Håkon Frey, amongst his many philanthropic and educational missions that he did, was that he brought back Michel Anton Vassalli, who is the father of the Maltese language,
Yes.
and a patriot.
Yes,
He brought him back to Malta from exile. He had been exiled for his sympathies with France. And Vassalli had been trying for many years to promote the use of Maltese as an official language, and Frey gave him the platform through his connection with the university.
Yes.
He appointed Vassalli the head of the Maltese department and the first teacher of Maltese, written Maltese. And he also financed a good number of his publications.
Yes.
So the first books in Maltese.
It's incredible.
So Villa Frey, we know that Vassalli also lived close by, if not at Villa Frey. This is still a theory we're still working on with experts on Vassalli, because there are a number of scholars who have who are missioned with understanding more about Vassalli. But it's not often that one can say that a language, so the national language of a country, was given importance, if not the certain decisions taken about it from a specific building.
Yes.
And this is why that place is so important. One of our proudest achievements was, in fact, that we got Villa Frey's status elevated to Grade 1.
Yeah.
So it's basically at the same level as Hajar Imam, Nidra, St. John's Cathedral, and so
Brilliant.
on. And coming back to construction, one of our main challenges over there is constantly resisting requests for construction of apartment blocks to be built close to Villa Frey.
Wow. Yeah.
It needs a specific buffer zone. We try as well to educate people who live around there, who own property, that look, you have the privilege of owning land here next to such an important place,
Yes.
which such a beautiful garden as well.
Sure.
It was also designed in a way, coming back to the actual architecture of the garden, to enjoy distant panoramas and vistas.
That's right.
You see these country life photographs that I mentioned, the main vistas from above were from Mdina all the way around towards Valletta and Floriana.
Yes.
Incidentally, Frere had also designed the gardens, and this has been documented by his sister and other chroniclers at the time, who took rigorous notes as to why he would create this place,
Yes.
primarily to vent his bereavement, to vent the loss of his
Okay.
wife, who died prematurely from her illness.
Yes.
In fact, he selected the highest part of the Msida Garden of Rest. There's a wonderful cemetery in
Yes.
Floriana.
As well. Yeah.
I would strongly recommend people to visit. It's run by Dinlar Telwa and some capable volunteers. It's a sister site of ours because Frere is also buried there as
Yes.
well now.
Okay.
And from the upper Belvederes, he would see his wife look wistfully out to his wife's resting place across the water.
Okay. So,
And apart from that, he also built a number of the follies that there are there to provide employment to the locals.
yeah.
At the time, Malta was going through a very challenging period of economic depression.
Yeah.
There was starvation, and it was not uncommon to see locals from the fishing villages of Msida and Pieta queue up outside the Frere's property, where on Sundays they would give out alms to the poor and also provide work in the gardens.
Yes.
So these monuments, they are monuments really now. These follies, a bit of a perhaps a derogatory term for them, but that's the actual, these tempietos and walls and belvederes are monuments to his generosity as well. So there's the social aspect to it.
Sure.
There's a lot of social history associated with Villa Frere. And even after Frere's time, there were so many other characters and personalities
That passed through
owned the place, lived there.
Okay.
Owned and didn't really, because it was always rented, and now it's government property.
Yes. Okay.
So,
and is it secure for the future, other than encroachment of development? As a space, do you feel as an organisation that you've got the level of protection that you need for this?
for the immediate place, yes. However, for the context, it's a constant marathon, really.
Yeah.
It's constantly fighting these planning applications to build these blank walls that we mentioned earlier,
Sure.
insensitive development, hoping that one day there would be a change in the planning law, at least for the area and the local plan.
Yes.
I definitely would want to be visible at the place where that decision is taken.
Yeah.
Or perhaps not more visible.
Sure.
And also perhaps even the mentality. People would start appreciating that they have, like I say, they own a property which is next to such an important site.
Absolutely.
And I think that there is a bit of a shift going on, certainly in that area. The government is invested in Villa Guardamangia, which is
Yes.
a few hundred meters away.
Exactly.
Itself will hopefully be complementary to Villa Frere, so 2 Heritage Malta sites. And possibly more. There's so much more to discover there. We have a list that we know we're probably not even going to get through in our lifetimes.
Okay.
We're a very good core group of volunteers, and I salute them from here. We always up for more assistance, and we're there to stay. Really,
Yeah.
we're there to stay.
Brilliant. It's good. I've learned a lot in those last few minutes. Definitely. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, Edward, we're coming towards the end of our time together, and I've got some quick fire questions for you. They're making me smile, as you can see. So, gonna jump right in. It's a kind of would you rather scenario. Okay. So, would you rather live in a hypermodern glass cube with no privacy, or a 400-year-old palace with no
400-year-old palace.
Wait for it, with no Wi-Fi? Still?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Got it. Straight in there. I love that. Okay, would you rather accidentally demolish a UNESCO World Heritage Site or have to wear a hard hat to sleep for the rest of your life? Okay. Did you get that? The hard hat. Yeah, of course. Okay. Would you rather only be allowed to use Lego bricks to repair historic walls, or have to paint every building you design neon pink? This is nonsense. But
Neon pink, actually, because
go on.
I tend to do more restoration, much more restoration than design new stuff. So
Okay. So
it's a lesser of evils.
So we have some really beautifully repaired and restored historic buildings and a bunch of
pink
neon pink buildings.
Flamingo inspired buildings.
Okay, would you rather be stuck in a lift with a developer who hates heritage, or be stuck in a crumbling tower with a ghost who won't stop complaining about the rent?
Definitely the ghost.
You'll take the ghost any day. Well, you were brave against that rat in the subterranean Valletta, so I believe you. Would you rather have to announce every room you enter by shouting heritage, or have to bow to every limestone block you see? I hope I'm not on camera.
I'll go for the first. I'll go for shouting heritage.
Heritage, okay.
I think it's less taxing.
Very good. Brilliant. Well, thanks again for your time, Edward. Here's a small gift of our appreciation from Temple, from our supporters, Cleveland and Souchet.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Absolutely fascinating. Thank you.
Pleasure.